Welcome to the Man World Boom's big tech upgrade. It's been a very long time coming. I'm super excited to finally do the project. So let me take you through what's going to happen. It's actually not a functional upgrade. It's literally just cosmetics and visuals. So as you can see, there's a great deal of components on this table here. And all of that's getting built onto this rig over here. Let's start with my rig itself. The rig, this is my current PC. This is the Thermaltake P90 case or chassis, at least. It's an open chassis. I'm going to take all these plates off and show you guys about it or what it looks like. This is obviously going to give us a lot of reflection. Inside, I'm running a i9 because remember this box, making CPU boxes great again. So gave it to the kids and they dropped it, so there's a big hole in it and the chip was luckily not in it. First episode is going to be the RAM that we're going to put into this computer, and the number one criteria when you're buying RAM is obviously RGB. For most people, it's not going to make any difference the speed of RAM. I actually went and bought the wrong RAM because I got it at a good price, and it turned out to be AMD compatible RAM and not Intel compatible RAM. So this is Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of Corsair products on the table here. One of the key things was that all the lighting components needed to be integrated with each other. So I went for the whole Corsair universe of lighting products, or products basically. I built a custom CNC distribution plate, and you can see the Man World Boom logo there. Then the Waterblock components is all EKWB. I've got one of these upright pumps. I've got a quantum velocity CPU block. This is for my graphics card. One of the nicer ones for this card. It's an older card. It's 1080 Ti. NVIDIA, obviously. I bought this sort of as the product line ended, and they said there was only like a few left, and I said to my wife, I managed to convince her that it's time to buy this, and that sort of was the kickoff to the entire upgrade. And then what I've done is I sort of threw caution to the wind, and I went for not 4 fans but 8 fans. So we're going to put them in push-pull configuration. I went with a Corsair QL fans because they've got lighting on both sides. You just can't have enough RGB lights.
Are you sure about that?
This is the most comprehensive lighting build, or this is going to be at least, that I've ever seen. So I haven't managed to see on the internet anything as comprehensive as this. I've bought quite a lot of Corsair stuff. So I've got the LS light kit. So this I think this goes behind the screen. And so it's going to give you ambient light on the wall behind the screen. Obviously, I've got the QR lights, which is quite nice. I've got the Commander Pro, so this is where all the lights plug in, and your fans plug in and stuff, and you get a whole interface for that. Then I've got the Lighting Node Pro, which is I think an older version of the LS, but it works slightly different. So this can handle considerably more lights than the Lighting Node Pro. Then I've got the little Nexus, which is not a light, but it's just a display. So this either stands on a little bracket or it clips onto a Corsair keyboard. Basically, in the Corsair system, I can address every single light in this entire system individually. Follow along if you guys are into tech stuff, and I hope you guys enjoy this whole build. I'm super excited to see what it looks like in the end. All right, so let's go over the current system that I've got. Now, honestly, this is already a nice looking computer. Like I said, this is the Corsair P90 chassis or open frame, but it does have a few problems. Obviously, dust is the issue. I mean, that's quite obvious. What I do like about it is it's got this very nice solid bracket here for a vertical mount graphics card. Obviously shows off your graphics card, which is quite nice. So on this side here, you've got that all-in-one water cooler, and this thing actually glows blue, green, and red depending on temperature. This over here is my GeForce Aorus GTX 1080 Ti. And then on this end, I just put some hard drives because I had all this open space and I really didn't have much to do on this or extra to put on here. But that's all going to change now with all of these components that's going on here. In terms of inside, it's a standard, so it's not a fancy motherboard because I don't really need all the features. I just game on the machine. In the back, internally, there are big 2 hard drive bays, and I've got a 4 terabyte storage drive in there. That's the only drives I actually use is my boot drive, the NVMe, and the storage drive. So all these other drives are just stupid. They just wasting space and time and energy. First thing I got to do is I got to basically disassemble almost everything so I can start from scratch. So we'll do that first. I've assembled this thing, put the lights in as you can see, and basically that's what it looks like. Now the way I designed this thing to mount is, if you look over here, there's your spaces for your 125mm fans and your 140mm fans over there. So I've lined up these holes over here, that one, that one, that one, and that one, and also these three over there, there, and there, to line up with 140mm outside slots. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mount these screws through like that, and then put a nut there, and then I can basically float this thing out as far as I want. The first thing I need to do though is I need to just drill through this reflective film on the back here, because at the moment the film is covering everything. And the way you drill and cut plexiglass, it's an acrylic cast glass, is by milling it. So this bit that I've got in here is basically like a filing bit. It's got little sort of angled teeth in it, and you want to put your drill on high speed and then sort of shave away at it. So it's not like it's a complete opposite of drilling metal, for example. And let me just try this. So there we go, perfect. Just makes a little hole there. I basically just want to get rid of the plastic, and this is obviously going to cut a little bit of a tapered V in it and allow my bolts to sit perfectly in this thing. I've mounted the bolts in the back, and now just by putting two nuts there, I can obviously clamp them as far as these have to come out, obviously they've got to come in from the back. This thing is now mounted, as you can see, it works perfectly, it looks pretty solid, can be adjusted, and then I can still adjust the depth of it. But like I say, this is the Extreme series, and it's the quad, and it's going to fit real nice in that space. And the idea is on these brackets, it's going to sit 90 degrees like that. For now, I'm just going to put them on with these little screws. If they actually work, I think they should though. Yeah, they're going to work. Alright, so there you go. Brackets are mounted. By the way, I had these CNC'd out of aluminium plate from the same guys that cut my distribution plate. So I basically just drew up the design, measured the holes out, told him the diameter that I need the stuff to be, and he cut them for me, actually bent them as well. And then I took all the plates for powder coating, along with a little bracket for the pump. So what's going to be cool about this design is the pump is actually going to sit over there in the middle of this thing. So pump here, distribution plate there, radiator 90 degrees. That way, graphics card, CPU. So it's going to be really a piece of art. Okay, there we go. So that is measured. Now just to confirm, obviously I measured horizontally and not vertically. So I'm just going to take any reference point and just make sure that my distance from that reference point is the same. Okay. Alright, looks good. I'm going to drill some holes. It's mounted, all done. My first custom distribution plate built, mounted, ready. I'm pretty happy with the way it looks so far. I think once the LEDs come on and the rest of the water pipes and everything's built in, I think it's going to be sweet. But I'm going to be mounting the water blocks and the pump and the radiator and doing some of the pipe work. So basically everything's going to start to take a lot of shape actually. The CPU is the EK Quantum Velocity, and the water block at least. What I'm running here is the i9 19900K. After reading the manual, if you look at this awesome little water block. They give you a different jet plate. This thing's called a jet plate. It obviously restricts and redirects the water as it comes into the thing. It sits inside there. First things first, they say you must only hand tighten your screws. You've got to put these rubber washers, these little rubber washers on the inside to protect your motherboard over there. Right, next step, you want to put your thermal paste. Now, I watched another guy on YouTube and he said that this enclosed stuff from EK called Thermal Grizzly, he says apparently it's good stuff. We're ready to apply some of this. And as you can see, it's a beautiful mirror finish at the back there. So that now goes on there like so. I can hear the squeezing of the paste. So it's definitely making good contact. Then you want to put in these little springs. They go on like that. There we go. All done. CPU mounted. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to put the water block on the graphics card. Now, graphics card obviously sits over there, which is in a nice display position. I've got the actual water block. Some instructions, but I'm going to actually go ahead and watch a video on this thing before I do this. Okay, so after staring at this graphics card of mine for 10 minutes maybe, so they want me to take off this back plate, and then they don't say anything about putting it back. My concern is at the back of this card, there's a row here of MOSFETs. And the back of the card, so obviously this plate sits like this. Come on, there we go. So this lights up, but I'm not really worried about the RGB. What I'm worried about is this thing. When I touch it, it is like, it's hot. It's like proper hot. I reckon it's about 55 to 65 degrees. So you'll screw some of these screws in to hold the back plate in from this side. But now what they want is for me to remove this and then put this thing on this side and then use all these screws from this side that was meant for the back plate now from this side to hold the water block in place. And then they don't say anything about putting it back. So in their installation, all of these power chips over here are going to have no cooling. They're just going to basically radiate to air. And I'm not incredibly happy with that. What I'm going to do, being an engineer and a plumber, so this is electrics and water, it's sort of, I'm perfectly qualified for this. I am going to take my trusty drill and I'm going to drill some holes through this backplate, and I'm going to knock out some of these mountings so I can use them the way that they want me to mount this thing. And there's going to be a few of them left, and I think it's going to be enough to put pressure on this plate. So I'm going to make this backplate, I'm going to adapt it to work so that I can keep it in play and transfer all this heat still onto the backplate. But it's going to work. So let me just knock the 4 problem ones out. Done. Easy as that. This is the little thing that comes out. It's a little stud with a little thread in it. So it's meant for the screw to be able to screw in from the other side. So we knock 4 of those out. All 4 of them out. And now I can put some of these longer screws through and get all the screws in that the EK guys want, except for one. There are these 3 over there, and basically it's going to be that one. It's going to be that one. It's not going to be screwed in. Back in business. Now I'm going to apply the thermal paste, put the thermal pads on all the FETs, and then mount this thing and then screw it in from the back, keeping my stock backplate in play. If you look into the side of this thing, you can actually see a lot of what's happening with the thermal pads. If you look over here, you can see thermal pads are squashed up against the heatsink, which looks good. All of that looks good. If you look in on the sides, you can actually see some of the heat thermal pads pressed up against the heatsink. So there, for example, you can see they're nice and snug. They're sitting up against it. If I look on this side, there's a clear gap. You can actually see how this thing's bowed. Look at that area there. You can actually see how the thing is just sort of curved upwards. And if I zoom in there, you can see that mounting point from the actual heatsink, from the EK Waterblock, is turned out. You see that one there? It's turned out a bit. If you compare it to that one over there, that one's flush and that one's turned up. So I'm going to have to remove this whole thing now and then probably just turn that thing in a bit. So I found the problem here. If you see what's going on there, it seems these studs are screwing out. Let me turn all these back. I'm happy with that now. So I found out what the problem was. When I unscrewed the one screw to put that plastic washer in that I forgot for the CPU, I obviously turned that one out first, and the same thing happened obviously when I turned out some of the others, so that's why so many of them were loose. What I've got now is a EK Waterblock with a retrofitted addressable RGB light. It's an LED strip, so that's one of my strips, custom, and I put Corsair plugs on it. It's now addressable RGB light, and then I've managed to retain my stock standard backplate. So all that heat that was on there. So literally when you used to touch over here, it would be, I mean, I would reckon it's about 60 degrees over there. So that's Celsius. So I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. It's like 3,722 and 87.38 degrees Fahrenheit. Next step is the pump and the radiator.